Hey guys, this is Ryan Denson, also known as the Boston Beer Guy. I hope you're doing well and have an excellent day. I want to invite you guys to a very special episode of Frosty Boi Fridays
Frosty Boy.
on a Wednesday, where I have Alex Rabe, who is the co-founder over at Portico Brewing, to talk about the end of their crowdfunding for their tap room over at Main Vest. So Alex, thank you for joining the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. As always, every single Frosty Boi Friday is brought to you by Proof Somerville over on 10 Main Street. Go grab yourself a few beers there. Awesome. So before we jump into everything, Alex, can you give me a quick background as to what Portico is?
Absolutely. Well, we're a contract brewery. So if you're unfamiliar with that term, it means we brew our beer at another brewery's facility. So we're brewing up in Ipswich, Mass right now.
Okay.
And we distribute throughout Massachusetts. We've been around for how many years? 8 years now, since 2012. Wow. Like you said, we're getting ready to open our own space in Somerville. So this campaign we've launched is ending in about a week and a half. So we're just trying to promote a little bit more. We're coming to the Boynton Yards area of Somerville, which is a really, really sweet spot. And yeah, we're just really excited to have our first brick and mortar space where we can have a tap room and brew some more, eclectic beers on site. Because right now we're sort of limited what we can do up in Ipswich, but we're really pumped to sort of talk about it and talk about our history and anything like that. So
awesome. And now where can people go to donate? Obviously the Main Invest page, but how do you find it?
So you can find it on our Instagram link. Like there's a link in our bio. Also, you can just go to mainvest.com, spelled like M-A-I-N, sort of like the state of Maine, even though it's actually based in Massachusetts. It's Matt Invest. They are, they'll have a pretty easy platform. You can find us and other breweries, but the direct link to our page is on our Instagram bio.
And it'd also be in the comments of this as well for everyone who's watching.
Okay.
Awesome. Sweet. So let's get started. We're going to shotgun a quick Bud Light, as we always do. And then we're going to go into Fuzzy Logic, which is a Belgian pale ale. And then we're also going to do, at the end, we're going to do Chroma, which is an amber ale. So a little bit different than what we're used to on the Frosty Boi Fridays, but we're excited to try these beers.
It's been a while.
Yeah, I always forget. There we go. Ooh, that was perfect.
You're the one who does this all the time.
I know. Awesome. Cheers, man. Oh boy, you got the spillage over there.
I got a mess. All right,
that happens.
All right.
Yeah, it's always fun. Awesome. Man. Awesome. All right. Well, let's get into this. So obviously a lot of this conversation is going to be revolving around the opening of the tap room and sort of the Main Vest campaign and what you guys are doing. So I want to start off, we're going to be pouring the Fuzzy Logic, and obviously we always sip and talk as well. This is, again, the Belgian Pale Ale. It is 5.4% alcohol. So Alex, I think before we get into everything here, how did you get into brewing? How did you get into this industry? What's your sort of backstory?
All right. Also, I'm noticing how ridiculous I look with my crazy spillage. I hope that doesn't discount me as a beer drinker.
I've had worse.
I actually started brewing in business school, and I met a guy named Alex, also, who's a brewmaster. He studied in Germany, and we started homebrewing together. And we actually drank Bud Lights while we brew, because as you know, as you mentioned, you're a homebrewer as well. It's a pretty long day of brewing, and you don't really want to be drinking 8% IPAs. So we drank a Bud Light to kind of ground us a little bit and not get too nerdy about it. And we would brew probably once a week, and ended up coming up with a lot of cool beers. And being in the sort of business mindset and entrepreneurship, we decided to start our own business. Mm-hmm. And we launched it kind of in our second year of grad school by looking at what Pretty Things was doing and a couple other brands that were contract brands, or mm-hmm. gypsy brands, as the term was then being referred to. And we saw sort of the larger scale gypsy breweries that had these, breweries that would do 100-barrel batches and stuff like that. And we said, that's maybe a little too big for us. Right off the bat, it was a little scary to be like, our first beer, we're going to try to do 100 barrels of. So we started looking at smaller breweries that maybe hadn't thought about doing contracts. And we found one in Waltham. At the time, it was called Watch City Brewing Company. They're no longer around, but if you lived in the Waltham, Greater Boston area, you might have, heard of them. They were pretty cool. But we walked by and noticed they had a 14-barrel brew house and thought, it's a little big, for what it seemed like they were doing business-wise. We started talking to them, and they're like, yeah, we're only brewing once or twice a week, and we have 4 fermenters in this big brewery. Why don't you guys, excuse me, those chocolates really make you burp.
Oh, yeah.
They basically were like, yeah, let's see if this works out. And we came in, and because I think, my partner, Alex, was a brewer, and he kind of knew, it wasn't like, not to disparage homebrewers going, commercial side. I think they felt comfortable with us because we had a technical background, and Alex had brewed at another brewery himself. So we kind of worked right in with them. And eventually they were like, hey, it's your Wednesday's your day, or Thursday's your day. We were brewing our own beer. Alex and I brewed everything together. So we kind of saw every layer and level of the value chain. I would deliver in my car and pick up kegs and invoice. It was a crazy way to start a business, honestly.
So, I mean, that being said, you mentioned you do a lot yourself kind of going around and selling the beer. So where, for the people that watch us, where can you buy Portico beers, in cans or on tap?
So on tap is tough right now. We definitely took a hit
Obviously
from COVID, and we had a good percentage of our accounts. We were all around Cambridge, Somerville, Boston, Western Mass. So definitely shifted things like a lot of companies have done to cans. These days, our website has a list, and I'll make sure it's updated after this because sometimes I forget. But you can find us at Wine and Cheese Cask. You're a Somerville guy. I think Ball Square Liquors carries us, a couple places nearby you. Pemberton Farms. I know I'm realizing I'm being too local here, but we're statewide, just in Massachusetts. So you can find our cans, and generally we'll have the beer we're drinking now available, Fuzzy Logic. But we also do a couple, like we have an IPA, we have a Pilsner. We also do Chroma, which we have today. It's an amber. So we've got some other things. And obviously when we open our own brewery, we'll have a few more selections. Yeah,
exactly. So let's talk a little bit more about this crowdfunding, because I've seen a lot of these breweries do this, but I've also seen a lot of breweries not go this way. So, Brockton Beer is another Main Vest, company that's doing this as well. So what made you go into the crowdfunding way? And what are sort of the perks you get if you donate?
Sure. I can talk about what made us decide. We can't really talk about perks. It's just like an SEC thing. So I'll be as vague as possible there. But generally speaking, we'd heard through the grapevine that a couple friends had done a crowdfunding campaign through this exact platform. And sometimes, I don't know if people out there have tried starting businesses and going crowdfunding. There's all these platforms out there. Kickstarter's the original, but there's so many. And they just seemed kind of daunting, and there's some are perks based. You don't know where they're based as a company. Mainvest is local, I think their home base is in Salem, Mass. And we saw all these local breweries on there, and they were all getting funded. Our friends at Deep Cuts Deli and Brewery were funded there. Brato Brewing was funded, and then we saw a couple breweries during COVID were getting funded. So we were like, it's just an incredible platform as an alternative to traditional financing like banks. And to be totally honest, we've been working on this project a long time, and as soon as COVID hit, we were kind of ready with our bank loan, and things fell through there because of the times, and retail businesses aren't getting a ton of investment now. And it was luck, honestly, that we happened to have been talking to Mainvest anyway about maybe a smaller campaign, but we kind of transitioned it into a larger campaign. So, we can raise up to $175,000, which is pretty incredible. We're at about 100,000 right now. I know it seems like that. Yeah, I know. I couldn't be happier with how it's gone and how, the campaign works. You can invest for as little as $100, and it's not a perks thing. So you're not going to get a hat or a glass or a sticker. But it's a real investment. So you do get your money back, and, plus some more. So it's an interesting model that they've created. And I think, they internally, and I think somewhat externally, call it Brewvest, because there's so many breweries on there. And I do encourage people to check other breweries too. I'm certainly happy to promote anyone I can. I'm just here because we have 9 days left now. And I think, we're just trying to get the word out as much as we can. And I will say too, that our location, people that were fans of Slum Brew. We're right around the corner from the Wood Street location. So
nice.
It's funny, like we've just kind of come in and people are like, oh, awesome. Well, one leaves, another brewery comes, and it feels like the right spot for us. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it's a really dope spot.
And again, I've only lived in Somerville for about a year now, and I like Slum Brew a lot, and it's great. I mean, you've got Remnant over here at Winter Hill, so there's a lot of great breweries already here, and it's awesome to get more breweries, and it's getting better and better as the years go by, and it's just it's great that you guys chose this location because it's just an awesome location.
Yeah, I mean, I also live here. I'm from Cambridge, so I get the neighborhood. I live in the same ward. I don't know if you know what ward you live in, but I'm literally like a 5-minute walk from the space.
Nice. That'll be an easy commute.
Yeah, easy commute. We've always been kind of Cambridge focused, given our roots. Another one of our partners is also a Cambridge guy, and you know, I think people talk about cities that are really great for beer, like Denver or Seattle or Portland. Mm-hmm. And I think Somerville is like, well, first of all, it was rated by Forbes and all these magazines as the #1 best city for opening a brewery. And that was after we'd already decided to do it. So someone ran some numbers on Somerville being a great spot because it's sort of underserved by the amount of breweries that it currently has versus how many people like yourself that love craft beer and just, you know, want to walk around and not have to drive around to go and sample a bunch of cool stuff. So we're just pumped that like we'll be up the street from Bantam and Remnant and Aeronaut and all spots.
Oh yeah, I got Remnant coming on in a few weeks. I love those guys. It's always been good. Yeah. Awesome. So I got a few more questions for you, and we'll sort of pause in the middle and we'll rate this beer and open the next one. But my next question I have for you, kind of shifting back towards Portico Brewing. And I ask this question to every single person that I interview, can art. Now, I know that can art is a big process of why someone would buy a beer. I know that if I go into a brewery and I don't know anything about the brewery, but they got some cool can art, I'll buy the beer. So when you're brewing, do you keep that in mind, the name, the can art of what that sort of beer is going to entail, or do you do that afterwards?
We generally will come up with a style first, and then as soon as that's set, we'll start thinking about the name.
Okay.
I do all the can art myself, so we don't actually hire anyone to do that. So it's definitely, to answer your question, it's definitely on my brain. And it's, you know, sometimes frustrating because I'm thinking about the beer and the art all at the same time, but in general, we have somewhat of a script to our beer names. We try to come from design or architecture or math. Or we kind of stay in this like nerdy world rather than just calling it like Hops Explosion or, you know, some random thing that has to do with one of our brewers that nobody knows. Like we try to keep it in a lane of design. So fuzzy logic is a nerdy math term. Chroma has to do with light and the difference between a brighter color and not so bright. 2-point pills is about 2-point perspective, and the art reflects that. So as far as the names, we start there and then kind of back into the more, you know, abstract design. And this one in particular was really exciting. So this one was a riff on a version we did of this beer with Lumi, which is an MIT-based company that does holograms that kind of live on really thin pieces of material. So this is actually a shrink wrap. Now I'm just trying to be educational, but a lot of beer cans that by breweries like us that don't make tons and tons and tons all at once, we order beer cans from, you know, smaller manufacturers. So instead of printing right on the can, it's a shrink wrap. And this company, Lumi, did a 3D version where it's sort of like moved, and this is not it, but I did a riff on theirs after. This is the second sort of homage to that beer. I think I have a can somewhere, not here, but anyway, so this was kind of a new direction of that. And we were actually the first company ever in beer to use their technology on a can. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Hell yeah, that is pretty sweet. I mean, you guys are doing some things that are absolutely wild. That's crazy. That's pretty funny. And utilizing obviously, you know, mass-based routes and whatnot to get everything is just supporting local is always my favorite part about everything.
Yeah, same. We're in agreement with you there.
Awesome. So so I got a few more questions for you. I want to rate this beer, and then I want to pull out Chroma and talk about this one. So whenever we rate the beers, we always want you to say, don't take your bias into consideration. I know this is your baby, your beer, but think about it like, maybe like someone like me who this is the first time I'm having Portico Brewing. Think about when you're opening your tap room and someone walks in and you're experiencing this beer for the first time. What would you rate this beer 1 out of 10?
Safe answer 7. This is not my favorite beer. I don't open this all the time when obviously I have a ton of rounds, as you can imagine. And it's just the Belgian style isn't always my go-to. Like I had a kick in IPAs and all that. And now I'm kind of going more toward Pilsners and sort of light session-y, crispy things that are a little bit more level. But this beer for me, like I always come back to it, even as a kind of a palate cleanser in between style obsessions. So I'm always back to the fuzzy somehow. And it's just reliable. If you like Belgians though, I do, I think it's a really good version because it's actually based on a Kolsch, which is a German style beer. Okay. So it's got a very like crispy backbone. And then it has this nice Belgian funkiness, a little banana, a little citrus to it.
The banana is something that I can taste right off the get-go.
Oh, nice. I'm glad you can, because it comes from the yeast. It's got that like fruity estery thing going on, which I think is cool. And like some other styles, Belgian ales or Hefeweizens and stuff, they have a little bit more of that like bubblegum or a little bit heavier to the palate. And this is a little cleaner, a little crisper. Just looking at it, doesn't have that. Well, I can't see mine. I've been drinking out of these stainless steel. Lately, so.
You can see mine right here.
Yeah. It's not super hazy, right? It's like a little bit more clear, and it's got that
translucent.
Yeah. So I would give it. I don't want to say I'd say give it a 7, man. That's my review.
All right. So I'm going to do the same thing as well. I'm an IPA guy, as we talked about before the show. I don't get myself into a lot of these sort of Bulgarian pale ales. I like pale ales. I can taste the banana right from the get-go, which I really do like. Hefeweizen beers are like my 3rd favorite beer, so it kind of brings me back a little bit. I'm actually going to give this a 7.6. I think it's a great beer. It's a nice beer to kind of just casually have, and if you have too many of them, you're not going to be as wasted if you have too many IPAs, if you know what I mean. So that's my review for this one. So I'm going to also put this aside and get out the Chroma. I'm going to finish this one really quickly before we do that.
Cool. And the discrepancy in can art is, I'm aware of it. We're moving toward the fuzzy logic look.
Yeah, I like it. It's a good sort of, I like the Made in Massachusetts logo is pretty cool if you can see. Well, what are my questions?
All them used to kind of have this ring thing going on, and now we're moving toward more of a white and black thing.
Yeah. So again, this Chroma is their Amber Ale. So my question, again, we are kind of continuing on the conversation here, is you're obviously, you said you're from Cambridge. So what is your twofold question? What's your favorite brewery when you're not drinking Portico, and what sort of brewery would you want to collaborate with next?
Oh God.
I got you on that one.
I would say, right now, just because, sorry, my screen's doing a weird thing.
Yeah, good.
Just because they're down the street from me, Remnant has been my go-to. I love them. I think they like quietly do just amazing beers. And I'm always telling my buddies who are Treehouse and Trillium diehards that go wait in line and stuff, I'm like, you live in Newton or Somerville, like just come meet me at Remnant. You're going to have as good of an experience as any of those places, and you're not going to have to wait in line. You're not going to spend $75. You can just buy and that's no disparagement on anybody on those other breweries. It's just, I feel like I really appreciate breweries that kind of just do their thing really well and do it kind of quietly, like they're not super out there saying, we're the cool hip new beer. So yeah, I would say, like, to answer that question, I would say they're the brewery that I'd like to be more like, and they're my favorite go-to these days. If I could, I realize I'm plugging them really hard, but
it's okay. I would be plugging them as much as possible. I mean, these guys, those guys have been wonderful to me. You know, I came over to their brewery and they gave me a nice little tasting when I came to talk to them about what I'm doing here, and the just kind of the openness of what they're doing, and like how they're just sucking their head brewer. And he was such a cool guy, and we just got into touch, and he's like a diehard, just like, I want to make good beer for the people, and he has so many cool beers and what they're doing. You know, we're doing their hang time, you know, they have a bunch of different sours that they're going to be doing. So it's just, I'm with you. I think they are one of the top breweries in the area, and you don't have to wait in line to get their beers. As much as I do love waiting in line at Treehouse and Trillium, you know, I feel that, you know, Remnant is really doing it well.
Yeah, and I don't, not to be too long-winded about it, I just feel like there's a lot of companies that when we started out, we've been around for 8 years, so we've seen a lot of different styles of people trying to like take over the world as a brand, kind of go really big, really quick. Like Lord Hobo, you know, they came out of nowhere and just giant all of a sudden.
They're crushing it.
And it's great. Like everyone has their own thing. I just like to see, because we're more aligned with like the Remnant style, or maybe Aeronaut a little bit, or I'm just talking about local guys or
Lamplighter
that are trying to Lamplighter's gotten big too, but like starting small, doing what you do really well, and just making sure that the customer experience is really good, the beers are awesome, and not coming out saying like we're going to be the biggest regional player, because the honest answer is there's just you can't be that
tough.
anymore. It's just so many brands out there, and you know, you got to build it slow unless you can build it with a lot of financing. But I just like what they do. I like, you know, we're kind of in the same vein as what we're going to try to do as well. So
and I think, and I think like you said exactly. I mean, right now, the best sort of situation for everyone is just to have these sort of small breweries that do a lot of really good stuff, and they do it consistently. I think that's the biggest thing, is the consistent beer. You know, you're going into Portico, you know what you're getting, and you know that the stuff that they're going to put out is good. And I think that's just kind of the biggest thing about, you know, having a brewery nowadays is, you know, you get the Lord Hobos that are just, you know, pumping out tons of beer, and good for them, the night shifts, all those guys who are just absolutely commercializing. And then you got the small guys who are crushing it in terms of like what they're doing, like you guys, Remnant, you know, all Winter Hill, you know, those guys are doing really well as well. And I just think it's all so good.
And everyone has a place, you know, and then to go back to like the what I was saying about West Coast, you know, Seattle, those places, they're all, there's so many little brands on every street corner, and I see a future in Massachusetts of being kind of that, being much more like a little poke your head into this brewery, poke your head into that brewery, rather than drive your car to all these big ass breweries. I know. Have to drive home. So you know, I like the walkability factor. I like the small factor.
It's great. Yeah. It's awesome. Got one more question for you, and then we're gonna rate this beer, and we'll wrap everything up. Your favorite Portico beer? Go. I know you like Pilsners, but what's your favorite beer that you've done?
I mean, my favorite beer is 2 Point Pils. Honestly, it's our Pilsner. It doesn't get a lot of love because it's just somehow, I think Jack's Abbey came out with their post shift or something right around the same time, and they just have better distribution than we do.
It's Jack's Abbey's, you know.
It's just, they're everywhere. Yeah. So I was like, try ours. Like, theirs is good, but ours is really, really fucking good too. I love it. We also use a kind of an interesting hop called Wakatu in that beer, which is a New Zealand hop. Gives a little.
I have heard about that one.
Character. Most New Zealand hops will have a little bit of citrusy stuff, lime or lemon, and this one's great. So I highly recommend when we brew it again. It's not out right now, but when we brew it again, 2 Point Pils.
Hell yeah. Awesome. All right, so we're going to do a quick review of this one. So I think this is a great beer as well. I'm not a big Amber Ale fan, but I will drink anything, and I will love anything.
I'm challenge you, man. I'm giving you Belgians and Ambers.
I know you're giving me the works here. So what would you rate this 1 out of 10? This one, again, coming from Alex Rabe's perspective.
So I personally would give this. I like this more than I like Fuzzy, so I've given that a 7. I'll give this an 8. You know, it's just beer to me. It's a brown ale, and it's got some interesting character to it, a little bit of like fruit. We put a lot of interesting hops, so we use Nugget to dry hop this beer, which is kind of unusual. You ever had Trogue's Nugget Nectar, which is a great beer? They do it as well. It's pretty strange to use Nugget that way, but it's balanced. I think there's a lack of just brown beers in the market, honestly, like just beers that are balanced.
That's true.
You know, like when you go to, not that I've been recently, but when I went to England, like it's brown beer. You drink it, it's balanced. It's got a little bit of sweetness, and then hops are there to balance out. Like that's what hops are for, right? It's because barley is really friggin' sweet, and then you got to have some bitterness to balance it out. And I feel like ambers are just a way of trying to do that perfectly. ESB, like the extra special bitter, is really trying to do it perfectly. But this is kind of that attempt on our part, just making kind of a brown beer with a little bit of extra interest to it.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
I gotcha. I think the same thing. I mean, I do like this one a little. You said 8, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you said 8. I actually do like this better than the Fuzzy Logic. Again, no offense to the Fuzzy Logic. I think it's a great beer. But I do like it. I think it's a crisp and clean beer. I mean, again, it's a what is the? It's 6.1. So yeah, so 6.1. So it's a little bit higher. I would actually. I'm going to go around what you said as well. I'm going to do 8.2 because I definitely can see myself drinking another one after this because again, as you said, you're testing my limits here. I'm not a big amber ale guy, but I do like this beer. And I think it's great. Awesome. So Alex, thank you so much for joining the show. Everyone who's still watching at this point, go to their main invest more money. You'll get your money back and you'll be helping awesome dudes making better beer. So everyone again.
2021, baby.
Of course. Awesome. Alex, thank you much for joining the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Everyone, tune in on Friday. Progression Brewing is coming for a normal, great interview, and we'll see you guys next week. Awesome. Cheers, Alex, thank you so much.